Hi, my name is Isabel, and this is my major informative speech. I wear makeup, you might wear makeup, even if you don't, you certainly know somebody who does. Makeup has actually been an integral part of history for thousands of years. It's been worn by Egyptian pharaohs and European monarchs. Queen Elizabeth I, who lived from 1533 to 1603, wore makeup, and hers had toxic ingredients. In my speech, I will first discuss with you what makeup products we know for a fact Queen Elizabeth I wore. Second, I will go over the toxic ingredient found in the first product, and lastly, I will go over the toxic ingredient found in the second product. Now that you know what the speech is going to be about, I will get started. Queen Elizabeth I wore makeup to adhere to the beauty standards of her time, which was a pale complexion with red pigmentation. This signified wealth and class. Red pigmented cheeks and lips were accomplished using a product called rouge, which is equivalent to modern-day blush or lipstick, and pale skin was accomplished using Spirits of Saturn or Venetian ceruse, which is essentially just a high-end foundation. In her book Face Paint, The Story of Makeup, published in 2015, accomplished and professional makeup artist Lisa Eldridge goes over the fact that in many existing portraits of Queen Elizabeth I, we see her with a visibly whitened complexion and red pigmentation from the rouging, which just confirms that she was using these products. Lisa Eldridge also talks about how cochineal and vermilion were the toxic ingredients used in rouges in the 1500s. And in her book, Eldridge also states that the purity of lead in Venetian ceruse is what made it the most desirable high-end foundation of its time. Eldridge, in her book, Face Paint, The Story of Makeup, also points out that long-term application of mercury and lead-based products, such as these, caused really severe symptoms, not limited to skin discoloration, yellow, green, gray, purple, similar to bruising, rotting of the teeth, hair loss, and permanent lung damage. Pretty scary. You may be curious to know a little bit more about the ingredients in these products now that we've gone over what products we know Queen Elizabeth I wore, so I will be discussing the lead in her ceruse and why it's toxic. In his book The Elements of Murder, A History of Poison, published in 2005, John Emslie, an accomplished scientific author and academic specializing in chemistry, on page 262, writes about lead. He says, quote, "The upper classes of the Roman Empire may well have been fatally weakened by it, and the rulers of the British Empire were not unaffected either." End quote. This points out that lead has been present in history, and it's also been very catastrophic. In his same book, Emslie identifies the symptoms of lead poisoning. Lead poisoning paralyzes the intestines and degrades all the muscles in the body, but it mostly affects the brain, and those symptoms include depression, insomnia, coma, blindness, and encephalopathy, which is the swelling of the brain that can lead to permanent and deadly brain damage. Really scary considering that she was rubbing pure lead powder on her face every day, and it's that toxic as an ingredient. But now that we understand just how toxic it is, I'm going to move on to the mercury in the vermilion rouge that Queen Elizabeth I wore. So the mercury and vermilion rouge worn by Queen Elizabeth was really, really toxic. Fun fact, hat makers in the 1940s used a lot of felt, and in order to work with felt in their craft, they used mercury, and they coined the term Mad Hatter because they were exposed to so much mercury that many of them went crazy. A really good depiction of this is Johnny Depp in the 2010 film Alice in Wonderland. He plays Mad Hatter. And the Mad Hatter is really paranoid and crazy, has a lot of behavioral issues, and he also appears very, very ill. So that's a good depiction of what mercury poisoning would have done to somebody. On page 47, Emslie's book describes, talking about Mad Hatters, quote, "symptoms such as irritability, depression, and paranoid belief that other people were persecuting them, all of which came as a result of mercury seeping into the brain," end quote. The Queen was ingesting mercury through her skin by wearing her makeup products, but she seemed to do okay for a while, and this quote by Emslie on page 28 of his book might explain how she was able to tolerate the product for so long. Quote, "a person's reaction to mercury is unpredictable. Some can tolerate it in large amounts without showing signs of poisoning, while others were so sensitive that when mercury-based drugs were injected into them, they were dead within seconds of the injection," end quote. This is just a theory, but it might explain how she was able to tolerate the toxic ingredient in her rouge. I absolutely love weird history. I love delving into it, so it was really fun for me to talk about this topic with all of you today, and I hope that you had fun too and maybe even learned something. In conclusion, Queen Elizabeth I wore toxic makeup products, and these makeup products were rouge and Venetian ceruse, and they contained mercury and lead. For thousands of years, makeup has been worn by thousands of people all over the world, different cultures, but I am definitely happy to live in a time where I can wear makeup and know it's safe, thanks to people and groups like the FDA regulating the ingredients in our products. But historically speaking, that wasn't always the case. So I think we should all be very lucky that we don't have to fear any of the symptoms that I just listed today at the hands of our makeup. Thank you for listening.